Hello everyone, this is Crypto BitLaw back with your blockchain legal brief, and today we're going to discuss how a recent data breach affected a number of prominent crypto-based companies and the potential effects on their users. But before we dive in, if you enjoy this content, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We'd appreciate that. And with that said, let's dive right on in. Okay, so as we can see here, CoinDesk reports that HubSpot hack leads to data breaches at BlockFi, Swan Bitcoin, NYDIG, and Circle. All the companies assure users that their crypto is safe, as the customer management tool had limited access to internal data. They say a data breach at HubSpot, a tool used by many companies to manage marketing campaigns and onboard new users, has affected BlockFi, Swan Bitcoin, NYDIG, and Circle. But all companies say that their operations have not been affected and treasuries are not at risk. HubSpot is a customer relationship management (CRM) tool used to store users' names, phone numbers, and email addresses for marketing purposes and measure the effectiveness of marketing campaigns. While user information was leaked to hackers, the companies say that passwords and other internal information were not affected. In outreach emails seen by CoinDesk, the companies said HubSpot is an external tool and hackers did not gain access to internal systems. HubSpot said the breach was the result of a bad actor getting access to an employee account and using it to target stakeholders in the cryptocurrency industry. The company said 30 clients were affected, but has not published a full list. Some users have reported receiving an uptick in phishing emails from the companies over the weekend, attempting to lure them into entering their passwords on a fake site. In 2020, BlockFi suffered a breach after an employee's SIM card was compromised and ported over to an unauthorized user. After 2020's attack, BlockFi hired a new chief security officer. Crypto venture capital firm Pantera Capital said in February that its HubSpot account had been compromised and followed up with an email to its clients on March 19th. At this time, a timeline of events is unknown, as HubSpot has not said when its systems were compromised. Okay, so turning to this cryptonews.com article, we can gain a little more detailed information as to what happened. It states, in light of this most recent hack, BlockFi suggests the following steps to its customers. Password hygiene, make sure that you are using strong passwords and that they are different for every service. You can use password managers to make this easier, such as 1Password. Turn on allow listing for BlockFi. This is recommended even if you do not have an allowed list address. Anytime you want to withdraw, you'd have to add a new allowed list address, triggering a 7-day hold in addition to the company's standard 1 business day security hold, and be extra vigilant of scams. This includes inbound communication, be it emails, phone calls, or text. If it's outside of the typical BlockFi channel of communication, do not engage. With regards to Pantera Capital, they shared the same advice regarding password usage and management, as well as 2FA, and further adding in an email. If a communication uses unusual language or improper grammar, the communication may be from a malicious third party pretending to be Pantera. Never click links in emails or text messages in which the full web address is not visible. Finally, all three companies agree that if it seems too good to be true, it usually is. And then here, as we can see at the bottom, US-based crypto company Circle, the issuer of major stablecoin USD coin or USDC, also confirmed in an email that it has been affected by this hack. However, like the other mentioned companies, it stated that the internal systems were not impacted and the data exposed does include contact information but does not contain sensitive personal information. And for those of you who are wondering what are the potential legal ramifications of this data breach, and are there any causes of action or recourse for individuals that were affected, I've just got some points of note from this law review article that touched on issues related to data breaches, and it states, while data breach statutes require businesses to notify customers in the event of a breach, only a handful of those statutes create a private cause of action that allows the consumer to bring a lawsuit against the business. Thus, in the majority of states with data breach statutes, the consumer is statutorily entitled to notice of the breach, but little else. Given the lack of meaningful statutory remedies for data breaches, consumers have looked to the common law for a cognizable theory of recovery. Consumers have sought damages for data breaches under those theories of negligence, breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, and infliction of emotional distress. These common law theories are not well suited to data breach cases and often end in dismissal for several reasons. First, the harm that results from data breaches is most commonly economic harm. There's no personal injury or physical property damage sustained by the consumer as a result of the data breach. Many jurisdictions follow a rule called the, quote, economic loss doctrine, which prevents consumers from recovering purely economic damages under a tort theory, such as negligence or infliction of emotional distress. Thus, in jurisdictions that follow the economic loss doctrine, data breach claims sounding in tort rarely reach the jury because they are dismissed as a result of pretrial dispositive motions filed by the defendant. And for those of you who are unaware or uninitiated, tort law is a general legal framework that has to deal with torts. And torts, it's just kind of a fancy legal way of saying wrongdoings. So your torts or your wrongdoings against another person would be cognizable in tort law. For example, battery or assault or negligence. Those are all torts. Battery and assault being intentional torts, and negligence being negligence, non-intentional torts. So tort, if you hear tort, associate that with wrongdoing. Second, continuing on this article, many data breach cases are dismissed because the consumer lacks standing to bring such a claim. So with regards to standing, in order to bring a claim or have a suit, you have to have what's known as standing, and that is pretty much standing. I think a good way to look at that is skin in the game. You have to have some sort of injury in fact. Well, it says it right here. Standing is a constitutional prerequisite to litigation that requires a plaintiff to have suffered an injury in fact. In other words, the harm sustained by the plaintiff must be real, not hypothetical or speculative. In data breach cases, the injury can be hard to define. Plaintiff consumers often argue that the data breach itself and the risk of future identity theft are sufficient harms. Defendant businesses contend that no injury has occurred unless the plaintiff can show a link between the data breach and an actual instance of identity theft. Not surprisingly, the courts are divided on what type of injury suffices to confer standing in a data breach case. And then next, even if you can survive the hurdle of standing, you have to prove all of the elements of your case in order to win, and it's really tough to actually prove that an injury was caused by the data breach. So it states proving causation in data breach cases can be difficult because the plaintiff's personal information may have been compromised in other data breaches, making it nearly impossible to establish that the suffered identity theft was due solely to the result of the defendant's breach. So it's really tough to prove up that your injury or your identity theft or the economic damages resulted therefrom were a result of this particular breach, because there's an entire world of potential breaches. I'm sure almost everyone's data has been breached at some point, whether it was through the T-Mobile hack or one of the other popular or infamous data breaches, this just being one of them, this crypto company HubSpot breach. So continuing on, finally, the procedural and substantive difficulties associated with data breach litigation mean that very few of these cases are likely to survive dispositive motions and reach a jury, which in turn makes them less attractive to class action attorneys. The procedural hurdles, the cost of litigation, and the prospect of a small recovery are enough to deter most individual consumers from bringing data breach lawsuits. Without effective legal remedies, most consumers must simply put up with the headaches associated with data breaches. So there you have it. It's one of those things. These are the breaks. It's just one of those unfortunate facts of life. Your data will get breached, and you likely don't really have any recourse for it, as you can see here in black and white. But I think the biggest thing to consider as a result of all of this is to make sure you use good OPSEC, good operational security. Make sure your passwords are secure, as these articles mentioned earlier. Make sure you're not clicking links from suspicious addresses that you received. And just in general, be cautious and aware of your surroundings, especially in this space, because now that if you were affected by this breach, there could potentially be a list of people out there that acquired your data, your personally identifiable information from a dark web transaction where a data dump of your PII, or personally identifiable information, was sold on the dark web to people that would find that valuable for the sole fact that it's more likely than not, if you were involved with these companies, that you own crypto. And so then that would make you an enticing target. So all in all, just for review, if you were affected, any sort of data breach, you more likely than not do not have any legal recourse in terms of recovery for that data breach for the reasons aforestated. And the best course of action from here on out is to use good OPSEC, good operational security, to protect yourself from any sort of actual compromise of your crypto or digital assets. So all in all, I hope you enjoyed this content. And if you did, please, again, like and subscribe to our channel. We'd really appreciate that, and that'll help us to grow and get the message out there as we continue to strive to generate and create, good informative content for you all. And so with that said, thanks again for watching, and we will see you all in the next video.